X. The Akron Beacon Journal.
December 24th, 1895. Not that. 102 years ago tomorrow, on Christmas Day, in the county of Franklin, which is located in the northern part of Alabama, a Negro baby boy was born to a slave and his wife, who was at that time employed upon a large cotton plantation. Taken by itself, this statement is, perhaps of little interest. The fact that is worthy of passing notice is that this particular little pickaninny is still living, and if the sun rises tomorrow, he will be 102 years old. The referred to is none other than Frank Mitchell, who is the oldest person living in Akron, Ohio. The Beacon reporter called upon him yesterday afternoon and found him located in a little shanty, which is about 25 feet long and 8 feet wide. The shanty is located on Boder Street and is covered with a coat of whitewash. In front of the shack, near the door, stands a green armchair, which is used by Mr.
Mitchell during the summer.
A rap at the front door was responded to by a,
"Come to the side door."
This door stood ajar, and as the reporter walked in, he had to stoop to pass within. In front of a stove, in his bare feet, and with his shirt opened in front, smoking a clay pipe most vigorously, was the ex-slave. He greeted the reporter with a pleasant smile, and when told that the reporter had come to talk about his birthday, Mitchell began laughing most heartily and said,
"You white folks am great people, but sit down anyway."
Then he proceeded slowly but in a very intelligent manner.
"Yes, sir. On Christmas morning it will be 102 years since I was born, and since that time I tell you I have seen lots of good as well as bad times. I am still in good health, except during the winter I have a pain in my left shoulder and arm, which often gets very bad. On last Christmas Day I felt awful bad and thought I was going to die. I sat here at the window and I went way back down south to the many happy Christmases that I spent years ago. And when I thought how I was all alone, I felt awful bad. And then on New Year's Day, I sat here on the same chair all alone, and I thought of the many different times I had been put on the stand and sold awed of the many masters I had been under. Winter, however, passed away, and when it began to get warm, of course, I felt better. Early in the spring, I dug up nearly half an acre of land myself, planted potatoes, corn, pickles, peas, onions, and cabbages. When everything was ripe, I gathered the harvest and wheeled all down here to the house and stored everything away in the cellar. In this way, I got enough vegetables as to last me all winter."
"Do you prepare your own meals?" asked the reporter.
"Sure I do,"
answered Mitchell with a hearty laugh.
"There's a man living with me and I cook for both of us."
Mitchell then showed the reporter about his home. He walked very easily and, although in his bare feet, did not appear to pay any attention to the disagreeable weather. The shanty consists of 2 rooms, a partition being built through the center of the building. In both rooms, there is a bed, which, besides a chair or two, comprises the furniture. The beds were very clean, and although the rooms were crowded, all appeared cheerful and bright. Returning to the kitchen, or rather the rear room, Mr. Mitchell, after lighting his pipe and saying that he would rather smoke than eat, agreed to tell the reporter about the first Christmas that he remembered and how it was observed in the South.
"The first Christmas that I remember was when I was 10 years old. The overseer on the plantation cut a hemlock bush and took it into one of the log cabins, where it was fixed into one corner of the room. The women folks then tied all kinds of pretty things on the tree, and when everything was ready, they let us children in to look at it. I was nearly scared to death when I first looked at the tree, and I will remember that as long as I live, because one of the women slapped me very hard. You see, in some of those packages, tree was candy. I was awful hungry for candy, and I kept walking around the tree figuring on how to get one of those packages. At last, when I thought no one was looking, I pulled one off, and one of the women caught me. My, how she did box my ears, and I did not dare to get near that tree again that night. You say you wanted to know how Christmas was celebrated by colored people before the war. Well, I tell you there wasn't much to it. They used to give each other presents. We had a general day of jollification, and a good big.
"Have you ever been married?" asked the reporter.
"Oh yes, I was married, but since the breaking out of the war, I have not seen my wife. My wife was on a plantation 12 miles from where I was. Our overseer was an awful mean man. One day while we were picking cotton, he nearly killed the man next to me, and after he had him all cut up, He threw him to the ground and began pulling his whiskers out by the handful. I looked at him and said, "Don't you dare to do any such foolishness around me, for if you do, you and I will go to hell together, and right here, this morning." He didn't touch me. About 3 o'clock that afternoon, I saw some men riding down the road with guns across their saddles. I asked where all these white folks were coming from, and one of the slaves said they were coming for me. Well, I just laid down my bag and ran to the woods. I stayed there for 3 months and lived on whatever I could steal. Then I went back to the plantation to the headman, and he put me on another part of the plantation. I stayed 1 year until the Yankees came down. Then I had another fuss, and again ran away, getting in with the 64th Ohio Regiment under President Garfield. Later, I came north and have been here ever since. I have not seen my wife nor heard of her since I left the South.
Mr. Mitchell said that since he came to Akron, he has only been out of the city to go once to Cleveland, Worcester, Tallmadge, and Hudson. He says he helped to raise nearly all the colored people in this city and thinks he can well be called the godfather of them all.